Anyway, so today was about you know so Deepa called me a couple of weeks ago and she said you should be talking about your life and your career journey. I said that's great. I love to talk. I'm a fairly good storyteller. But then somebody called you and they said, okay, tell your story to others, youngsters who are interested. I said, wow, this is great. This is an amazing opportunity to talk about myself, right? Now, I know all of us love to talk about ourselves when an opportunity is presented to us, right? Now, that is where the opportunity came. I said, oh, wow, here is an opportunity for me to speak about myself. From a small town or a small city nowadays called Tudukuran. It is in Tamil, it's called Thoothukudi. That's the new name. The old British name was Tuticorin. Yeah, when I say Thoothukudi, Tuticorin, most of you would go like, where exactly is it, right? So if you have had that thought, then I don't blame you because it's not a very well-known town. If I say Kanyakumari, you know that's the southernmost part of India. When I say Madurai, you know Madurai because it's the temple town. Now, to make it very simple, my town lies between Madurai and Kanyakumari in Tamil Nadu. All right. So to the north, as we go, there is Madurai. To the south, as you go, it is Kanyakumari. If you look, if you are even more curious, in the Indian Peninsula, the southernmost tip is Kanyakumari. You all know that, and the district right above it on the east coast is my district. So that's where I come tell you about this from North India, and the only language that we speak in my town is Tamil. Okay, so there is no other languages spoken. English, of course, here and there, but Tamil is the only language. There is no Hindi. So I never studied Hindi, and even now my Hindi is very bad. I just can't speak in Hindi. In fact, I've lived like 3 years in Mumbai, but that's where I picked up some Hindi, but my Hindi is very bad. But the opportunity there was to excel in English. So my English got really better. So when I started, I was in an Anglo-Indian syllabus, so picked up English quite a bit. And so I'm one of those stage speakers who can speak fluently in Hindi, in English, and in Tamil, fluently in both my mother tongue, which is Tamil, and the adopted tongue, which is English. So that's why the opportunity came. And so, of course, in a small town, a middle class family, just grew up. Uh, Not many things those days. Growing up in the 70s and the 80s. With even television coming to our town just in the mid 80s was we were very far away from a lot of things that were in the metros and in the cosmopolitan towns. So, but still, you can't give up, right? You just have to come up. You just have to work towards your career. So that's basically what we all did. And we finished our school. We went to college. My college was in Kanyakumari district. An amazing journey there as well. In fact, my parents wanted me to go into medicine. They wanted me to become a doctor, and I tried my best. I tried my best to become a doctor, but the opportunity that came to me was engineering. And today, when I look back, I say, wow, thank God I took my engineering studies seriously, and I became an engineer, because I think I'm more happy today being an engineer rather than a doctor, actually. So completed my engineering studies, and as anybody, most people in Tamil Nadu did those days, I came to Chennai in search of a job. That was back in 1995, and my first job was in Chennai. So again, this was in the electronics field. Now, this is the mid 90s I'm talking about, right? 1995, right in the middle of the 90s. And electronic field was not that great those days. And I after a couple of years in the electronics field, the IT bandwagon around me was just growing too loud, and it was too big to just ignore it. And many of my classmates, many of my friends who started, even somebody who did engineering, civil engineering, switched to IT. I know somebody who did law, who was a lawyer, who switched to IT. IT opportunities around us, so many opportunities. And I just said, okay, I should just quit my job, go do a course, and get into IT. And those days there were a few areas that you can get into. One was mainframes, because mainframes was pretty popular, still pretty popular those days. Java was just making its way. Networking was another area. So looking at all these, I tried one after the other. I knew coding was not my cup of tea. Oracle was also not something that I tried for a month. I couldn't get into it. Then finally I said, okay, let me get into networking. So went to my dad, made an agreement with him. He gave me the money to do the course, because I didn't have that much money those days. He gave me the money to do the course, and he told me one thing: this is the last time I'm giving you money for your education, because I've already paid for your college degree, and don't come to me again and ask me for money. I said, Dad, this is the last time I'm getting money from you for my college for any education. So took the money, came back to Chennai, and enrolled in a networking course. Finished that course. I came to Bangalore for the first time those days to take up the exam. There were 7 exams that I had to take in order to complete my certification. Finished all of them, very focused, did it. And it was a May like this. It was May 1997. So 23 years ago, I finished those exams here in the town of Bangalore, city of Bangalore, and then went back to Chennai. And within a month, I got my first IT job. So again, it was many people think many times before switching careers, and for me that was a high risk maneuver that I had to do, because I had a job in hand. It was a fairly good paying job, but then switching to IT was something that was presented all over. And if you had lived through the 90s, you would know, and if you had graduated in the 90s, you would definitely know how much IT, the advent of IT was making waves in India. So yeah, there I was, an IT professional. I was into networking and systems. So I was a systems and networks engineer, and for a couple of years I was working in that area. Now, as I started working, there was the other opportunity that opened up, and of course, all of you would have guessed it. That is the H1B, right? The opportunity of getting an H1B visa and going to the US. Now, I know I'm going to put a lot of you, a lot of those aspirants who still want to go to the US, and today the path to the US has become so tough, right? But those days it wasn't. Those days it was if you really wanted to go and you had the skill set, US was your destination. So I'll tell you my story. So now, December 1998, I saw almost a page long ad in the Hindu. This was back in Chennai again. I was working for Microland. Most of you would know the company. So one day, a couple of my colleagues and me, we looked at this ad. This ad was from a company called Hexaware. Now, Hexaware today is a well-known company, but those days, again, Hexaware was a startup. It was just coming up. We looked at that ad, and it said, we are sending people to the US. We will sponsor your H1B visa. We will send you as our employee. Please come and join us. And it was a walk-in interview call that was advertised. So it was a weekend, and I uh, can everybody hear me? Sorry, I just saw a message saying that my video is lagging. Is everybody? Okay, thank you. Sorry, internet connections sometimes are a bit still lagging. Okay, I will continue. I don't want to waste time. Okay, great. All right. Um, so better now is what people are saying. Yes. So we will continue. So I'm not too far from the Wi-Fi. I'm just about a little, just far, not too far actually. So yeah, so it should be fine. All right. So anyway, I was telling about the story. So it was a walk-in interview over a weekend. So I went to my two of my colleagues and me. We went to this walk-in interview, and it was a funny incident actually. So I have to tell you this. So we walked in there, and they said. You have to take a written exam. So before a written exam before we screen you, and then we will conduct an interview, and then if we find you good, we will think about sending you to the US. We were like, wow, this is great. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's take up the exam. So we said, okay, here, give us the exam, and so they gave us the exam, question papers, and we just answered the questions. I and two of my colleagues. It was a Sunday. We answered the questions. We went back and to our PGs. And what happened was, there were 35 questions in that exam, in that screening test. And I just answered. I just ticked the answers, gave it a multiple choice questions, ticked and gave it. And in Chennai, those days, and even today, most people have this. On Sundays, the best entertainment or the best time pass is to go to the beach. So friends of my roommates and I, we just went to the beach, and we were like enjoying the evening. Meanwhile, Hexaver was trying to get a hold of me, and these were days when there was no mobile phones, right? This was 1998 I'm talking about. And and the contact number I had given was my PG number. So, and those days in the PG there was just one phone in the front office. And when somebody gets a call, the boy who's sitting in the front office would just yell their names, and the guy just runs down and picks up the phone, and he speaks. And Hexaver had called me 5 times, and I went to the beach. I came back home around 8 o'clock, 8:30, and this guy says, "You got 5 calls from Hexaver." I said, "Oh wow, that's interesting." And so let's see what happens. So I just, I couldn't call them at 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the night. So I just, left it there. And the next morning I went to work. And the next morning, Hexaver called me at work. Can you believe it? They called me at Microland and they said, "We want to talk to you." I said, "How can you call me at work? It doesn't work that way." They said, "No, no, no, we really want to talk to you." I said, "Okay, I'll come to Hexaver in the evening." So I went to Hexaver in the evening, and so they said, "You have to meet the VP of technology." I said, "Okay, great, VP of systems, Mr. Ram." So I went and uh, uh, met him. So three of them took me, and we all entered his room. I sat down, and these three guys sit around me, and there is Mr. Ram. And the first question he asks, which really threw me off, I almost fell off my chair. He looked at me and he said, "Mr. Patrick, what would it take for you to come and work for us?" I said, "If you guys are playing a prank, I'm not going to, entertain this, but I don't understand what the question you're asking." He repeated his question. He said, "What would it take for you to come to work for us?" Then I realized it's serious. Something good has happened. So I asked him, why are you so kind to me? What is going on? So he picks up my answer paper, and he shows it to me. The question, the screening test that was held the previous day. There were 35 questions in that test, and he shows it to me and he says, "We gave this test to about 40, 50 people, but you are the only one who scored 35 out of 35. And so we are offering you a job straight away." I was like, wow, that's great. So in my, innocence and youthful exuberance, I just said, "I just want to go to the US." And there it was. And my H1B process started. And you wouldn't believe, within 3 weeks I got my H1B. Within 2 months my H1B was actually, within another couple of weeks my H1B was stamped on my passport, and within a couple of months I was in the US. So that was July 1999 actually. So that is how I went to the US. And of course, going to the US was another huge culture shock, because things are so different there. And they drive on the right for starters, but the work culture itself is very different. In India, you have everything that you get help for everything. In the US, everything is done by you. So it was a tough learning experience, but slowly kind of got used to the US and lived there for a decade. Now, I know that all of you were waiting, and I told you towards the end of the story I will tell you how I got into security. So that's another story. A couple of years in the US, actually a year later after I went to the US, I was working for a company called Mercury Interactive, and this was in Sunnyvale, California. And one day my boss calls me into his office and he says, "I need to talk to you." I said, "Okay, what did I do now?" And he says, "Nothing. You didn't do anything. I just want to have a chat with you." I said, "Okay." And when your boss calls you in and says he wants to have a chat with you, your heart is in your mouth, right? And my heart was in my mouth as well. And in the US, right, they can just fire you like that. And my boss could have just said, "You're fired," and I'm gone, right? But no, nothing happened like that. He tells me a small story. He says, "We are doing a checkpoint firewall upgrade, and we want we had a consulting company come and help us with that project, but looks like they are not up to the mark, and so we have fired them." I said, "Okay, I'm with you so far. Tell me more." And then he said, "Well, somebody has to pick up the checkpoint firewall upgrade project, and I think you are the person. You should do it." And I was like, "Seriously? Are you serious?" He was, "Yes, I am serious. That's why I'm having this conversation with you, and I want you to pick that up." Now, it was Richard Branson who said something like this. He said, if an excellent opportunity is presented to you, and if you do not know whether to take it or not, just take it and learn how to do it later. I did not know Richard Branson those days. Richard Branson, the founder of the Virgin Group. But this is what I did. I said, "Okay," and I looked at my manager and I said, "I do not know anything about firewalls, so I need to learn." And he looked at me and he said, "I also do not know anything about firewalls. Let us both learn together." So that's what happened. We both started, learning together, and I started doing that firewall project. I traveled all over the United States to various cities: Boston, Dallas, Chicago, Atlanta, you name it, New York City. Um, Traveled all over the United States, and wherever we had offices at that time, I went there to upgrade the firewall and set up everything, set up the firewall rules, learned how a VPN works. I mean, working from home, all of you know how VPNs work, but I know the other side of how a VPN actually works. Of course, that's how security comes into the picture. Now, so that's how I went into security, and so slowly picked up information security, network security, and in 2001, the dot-com boom. So until then, there was the dot-com boom. Most of you may not know what the dot-com boom means, right? So in the mid 1990s is when the internet became very popular. If I ask you a question, many of you may know the answer. When did Amazon do their first sale, right? Now, I know that you may not be able to answer, so I'll give you the answer. Amazon sold their first book in July 1995. Okay, a lot of you may not know that answer, but that is where they started. Amazon became an internet company, and in 1995 July they made their first sale. And then the internet started growing, and the internet was called the dot com those days, right? Everything ended with a dot com: Intel.com, Microsoft.com, and there were a lot of companies that were based just out of the internet, and so they were called the dot com companies. And so in the year 1998, 99, 2000, it was the boom of the dot com companies, and these dot com companies were doing great. They were trading so great in the New York Stock Exchange, and whenever they went public, people who bought their stocks were making a ton of money. But in 2001, the dot com bust happened. So boom happens, and after a boom there is always a bust, and so the bubble burst, and many companies went out of business. Many stocks just dropped. Google was not even a company that many people knew at that time. Yahoo used to rule the internet those days, and this was those days, 2001. And as part of that whole thing, I got laid off, and because businesses were going really bad. But at that time, I was offered my first big break. When you get laid off, it's not an easy experience to go through. But I just trust. One thing I do is I trust in God, and so I was just praying that I would get another job, and I did get another job, which was in Austin, Texas, and that was my first entry into the banking sector, and into the financial sector. So 2001 September, I started in Visa. Now, if you use Visa cards to shop, and when you shop online, and as you put in your Visa card, your card, your the name on your card, and the card expiry date, and the CVV number, and you click submit, you get another page which is called the OTP page. All of you would have gone through it, right? And on the top, you would see verified by Visa. That was the project I was working on, right? So every time I shop on the internet, and when I use my Visa card, and when I get to that page, I will always look back the one decade I worked for Visa, and it was an amazing project that I started with. Again, the opportunity was presented. I did not know anything about banking. I did not know anything about the credit card industry. I did not know anything about finances. But there I was learning that. In the course of that, I learned the length and breadth of information security. Now, the next opportunity came in 2008. All was good. I was working for this nice company called Visa, and I was, married at that time. We had two children. We had our own home in Texas. We had two cars. A typical American Indian family, right? Or an Indian American family, and American Indian is different. So let's correct it. Indian American family, and people like me who went to the US on an H-1B visa eventually got a green card and then settled down, right? But in 2008 January, an opportunity was presented, and that was to go back to India, coming back to Bangalore. So my company said, we are setting up an office for Visa in Bangalore, and you are one of the people we have handpicked to send to India so that you can go and set up that office and grow along with that office. Now, many people rejected that. That offer was given to many people. They said, no, 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 we don't want to go back to India. But my wife and I discussed this, and we said, okay, let's take up this opportunity. So I took up that opportunity. And as you know, people who live in Bangalore will know the new office, the Visa's Bangalore office is on the outer ring road. So I'm one of those, who was working towards setting up that office in India and in Bangalore actually. And so that was a great experience coming here, starting from scratch, literally starting from scratch, looking for a place to set up the office, looking to build the team, working with vendors. Oh, it was a great learning experience. But 2 years later, Goldman Sachs came and they offered me a VP position. Again, a VP position in Goldman was something that I just couldn't say no to. So I said, okay, let me take that up, and so that was both on the technology side and on the security side as well. So I was able to grow as a technologist and into information security. Now, 6 years just rolled by. I was in Goldman doing well. One day I was, this was in the year 2016, January, February timeframe. I was just scrolling through LinkedIn, and I saw a job opening for a chief information security officer in a French bank called Societe Generale. Now, Societe Generale is based out of ITPL. This is the story that Deepa said in the beginning, right? ITPL, and they had advertised for a chief information security officer. Now, I know that I have done information security to a large extent, but I've never held the chief information security officer position. So I said, okay, here is an opportunity. Maybe I should just try it. Uh, from LinkedIn, it doesn't hurt to just apply through LinkedIn, right? So from LinkedIn, I just applied. I said, okay, let me just apply, see what happens. 2 days later, I got a call, and I couldn't believe it. A lot of times we apply. A lot of you would apply through LinkedIn, and you hardly get a call. But I got a call, and they said we want to talk to you. I said, okay, great. And so that's how that transpired, and I moved into Societe Generale. and as the chief information security officer, my first C-level position. And it was an amazing journey. I was there only for a year before another French bank poached me, and that was BNP Paribas, and they wanted me to move to Mumbai to head information security for BNP Paribas for entire India. So that opportunity came again. I said okay, and interesting opportunity, because when you take up information security an information security head position in a bank, you are taking up a lot of responsibility. And if anything happens in the bank, if any data leakage or any data breach that happens, you are responsible. And this also means that I have to work closely with the Reserve Bank of India, which I don't know if any of you have done. It could be a real pain. Okay, pain in the sense Reserve Bank is very strict, and you have to fall in line. They have their regulations, so you go there and you have to, make sure that you're compliant with them, with all their regulations. And that's why the Reserve Bank is called the regulator, the banking regulator. So I took up that position and worked there for almost 3 years. Went through several Reserve Bank of India audits. Again, as I said, it wasn't easy, but learned a lot through that experience. I could have said no, and I could have stayed in Bangalore, but going to Mumbai, the financial capital of India, working for a bank and heading information security for a bank was just an amazing experience. Really, really great experience. And then mid of last year, this company called Alshaya, the company that I currently work for, called. Again, it was a direct call. They just called me directly on my mobile and they said, "We want to talk to you." I said, "Okay, great, let's do it." And they said, "We are looking for a global information security head, and would you be interested?" So I had reached a country level head manager position with BNP Paribas. So my next transition was into a global role. And so I did not know anything about Alshaya, but let me give you a little bit about Alshaya. Alshaya is one of the largest private sector companies in Kuwait, and so they are a Kuwait-based company. And so when I say largest private sector, they are like the Tatas or the Reliance of India, basically, but in Kuwait. And so they own. They are into retail. They own almost all the malls in the Middle East, and they are a lot into the real estate, property management, and franchises with some of these major brands. So, for example, all the Starbucks stores in the Middle East is owned by Alshaya, my company. We also own other big brands like Motherhood, L Brands, and food brands like Texas Roadhouse, Shake Shack, etc., etc. So, um, so when this company called me, they said, you would you like to relocate to Kuwait? I said, I don't mind relocating to Kuwait, but then due to some visa complications and my parent, my mother is aged, and so she can't. I didn't want to leave her all alone in India, so I said, I opted to take this opportunity in Bangalore, which I think is a great thing, because this again gave me an opportunity to come back to Bangalore, a city I loved. And here I am in Bangalore, and I've been with Alshaya for the past 5 years. Sorry, 5 months. I hope it will become 5 years soon, but past 5 months, and heading information security globally for Alshaya. So I know this was an express speed, quick journey through my career. A couple of quick examples of how, interesting stories, how I got into information security, how I went to the US, how I came back to the US, and how I came back to Bangalore. Opportunities are always there. They always are offered to you, and you have to pick up the opportunities. If you don't, then you may get stuck in the rut. You may become stagnant, and that is something nobody wants, right? So whenever opportunities are given or put in your place, say yes. I had mentors and coaches and managers who always believed in that, who always trained me that way, and that is the reason I picked up my opportunities along the way, and here I am. Now I know that I did say that I will talk a little bit about cybersecurity and enterprise security. So today's enterprise security and cybersecurity is become very modern. Now we have got a lot of inroads. We have made a lot of inroads into artificial intelligence and machine learning and big data or data lake, right? Now, information security, as you know, is one of the key components of any company. Every other day, you would see on the in the news, at least once a week, you would see some company got hacked and their databases were stolen, their customer data was leaked on the internet. Now, this is something that we strive to protect. Now, with 90 plus brands in Alshaya, we have a lot of data. And as you know, data is the new currency. That's why companies like Facebook and other companies who are into similar. So social media companies make so much money because they are, they hold so much data about us. Now, you know that Facebook, if you haven't, now you know that Facebook also tracks all your offline activities. So let's say if you have the Facebook app installed on your mobile phone, they can track even after you close Facebook. They can still track what you do on your mobile. Now that is scary, isn't it? I wrote a post about this a month ago on LinkedIn, and it became a hit. Actually, it became a huge hit to the extent that Ram Madhav, who's the BJP General Secretary, actually took a screenshot of my LinkedIn post and he actually shared it on his Twitter post. Actually, he tweeted that, and that was a great honor. And your privacy rights, especially, you get the recognition you want. And so I was writing against Facebook, and if you ask me, I quit Facebook back in 2015. They get a lot of they take a lot of your privacy, and they take a lot of your information, and they sell it, and they actually make money out of it. I mean, making money out of it is their business, but then intruding into your privacy, if you are not okay with it, then you should actually go back and check all your settings and your privacy settings, especially turn off that setting which says track my offline usage, right? And this is something that Facebook automatically turns on, and many of us do not even know this, right? Now, from an information security head, I'm telling you, these are privacy issues. So these are things that from a corporate perspective, I have to make sure that I am guarding, right? So our data is very important. Our financial data especially is very important. Our customer data is very important. As we are in retail, we have loyalty programs. Our loyalty programs are very important. And as I said, retail also has payments. So there are point of sales at all our stores. We have more than 4,200 stores across the Middle East and in North Africa and some parts of Europe as well. So all this payment data, when somebody swipes their credit card, the credit card data should go to the bank, not to somebody who's trying to hack into the system, right? So we need to make sure that all that um, network and all those transactions are secure, and they flow the right way, right? So information security, cyber security can be summed up in three simple terms. That is called the CIA triad, right? The CIA. Now, we know, if you have watched Hollywood movies, you all know CIA stands for Central Intelligence Agency, right? Now, the same thing applies in cyber security as well. CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So let me explain that really quick, and we'll close my call today, or my speech today. So confidentiality, I was talking about Facebook, right? Now, it is our responsibility to protect our own confidentiality. Now, in a corporate environment, it is my responsibility to protect the confidentiality of my company. So my team and I, we work towards that. It is our responsibility. So we put all tools and measures and policies and procedures in order to make sure that confidentiality of our systems, of our data, of our company is preserved. So that is number one. Integrity. What does integrity mean? Now, integrity is when data moves from one place to the other, it has to move the right way, right? Now, we all do Google Pay, right? Now, let's say I Google Pay. I see my friend Sham Chandar in the audience today. So let's say Sham and I, he's my classmate, a very close friend of mine. Now, let's say I'm sending 10,000 rupees to Shyam for some reason, right? Maybe we are doing something together. So I open Google Pay, I put in, say, 10,000 rupees, and I send it to him. Now, Shyam should receive 10,000 rupees, right? Instead of 10,000 rupees, let's say Shyam receives only 1,000 rupees. Now, what would have happened? Somebody would have tampered the data as it was flowing from my Google Pay account to his Google Pay account, right? Now, this is a very simple example I give you. Now, I know Google, they have made sure that that kind of tampering doesn't happen. But when data flows, tampering can always happen. So, the integrity of the data flowing between two systems must always be preserved. So, that is the responsibility of our cyber security and information security team. So that is where we come in to make sure all data transfers, all transactions, all financial data flow is properly preserved. Now, when I was with banks, I worked for, as I told you, I worked more than 18 plus years for banks. In banks, we do a lot of cash transactions. We do NEFT, RTGS, you name it, right? IMPS. So these are some of the known cash transactions or cash flow that happens in India. And when during these cash flows, we must make sure that the cash moves from one place to the other properly, right? Online. And there are also international cash transactions which go through a system called SWIFT, SWIFT. And this is again to make sure that our international cash transfers also go through with integrity. So this is the responsibility of the information security team. And the final one is availability, right? The system has to be available all the time. Now, when you're doing a net banking transaction, right? Let's say you are transferring money from one place to the other, and in the middle of the transaction, if you lose the connectivity between from your system to the network or to the system to the server, or between two servers, it becomes a very annoying thing, right? You for a customer, it is the last. I mean, from a banking perspective, that is the last thing we want our customers to be experiencing, right? So availability, all systems should be available at all the time, so that when you do a transaction, there is no disruption. So that works in the store as well. Now, I told you that there are 4,200 plus stores in our company, and when you are swiping your credit card and it takes 15 attempts for you to finally make a payment, then our systems are not available, right? And we want to make sure that is not the case. We want to make sure that in one swipe or in one wave, the transaction goes through. So the systems have to be available all the time. So that is the third part of information security. So I hope all of you learned something. I gave you information security 101, which is three simple letters, right? CIA: confidentiality, integrity, availability. That is what we do. Now, I know that I oversimplified this. We know we have big systems. We have huge tools that we invest in to make sure CIA is preserved, right? So that is how information security works. And in all the IT products, software, CIA is built into. Now, when a software goes online, we need to make sure that the software is completely secure. So we do testing, what we call vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, and that is done on the basis of a CIA, on that CIA triad, and we unearth anything that could be a mistake and or a vulnerability, and we fix that before going online. Now, during this pandemic, my company has the stores were closed. We were going through one of the darkest times, because I said that our main business was um, uh, the store sales. And as you know, malls all over the world were shut, because malls is one place where a large number of people go, and during this era of social distancing, countries just shut down the malls, and so our business was going through a really tough time. But the way we made up for that was to open online sales and e-commerce, and so online sales became really big for us. And with online sales, again, cybersecurity becomes of paramount importance, right? So for us to make sure our e-commerce sites were safe and before they go online was something which was of top priority. So we were working on this, and we continue to work on this to make sure that our e-commerce sites, the websites that we expose to the internet through which people can shop, are always secure. So that is where my team comes in, I come in, and we make sure that those systems are secure, and the business continues for our for the company I work for. So that is basically my life journey and my career journey, and here I am today. We have about 12 more minutes to go, so I will pause here, and I can take a few questions. So if you have any questions, Deepa, can you explain how that should be done?
Wow, Patrick, that's been a long journey. Okay. And a very, very enriching experience, if I can say. You've taken up every opportunity that came, pick those risks, and you've been lucky that all of them have turned for your goodwill. Um, well, we can have questions come to us on the chat, and I can take that up for Patrick so that it doesn't distract Patrick. I have one big question for you. In this entire thing of your lifespan of the career that you've had, 25 years, has there been any decision that you took and you regret it?
That's a great question. Any decision that I took that I regret? Um, Let me think. Well, when it comes to saying yes to opportunities, I don't think I have made any decisions that I would regret. But when it comes to certain ways how we did things, so one particular incident comes to mind, right? Sometimes what happens, this was many years ago, more than 15 years ago. I was with Visa, and there was something that had to go into production in the IT environment, and so the product team came to me and said, we need to put this into production. I said, okay, let's do this, but we need to go through the checks and balances before we do that. They said, yes, you have to do your checks, but this is urgent, we need to do it. So in the whole urgency of things, when you get into the urgency mode is when you make mistakes. And when I was supposed to check something, and in banks there is always a what we call a maker and a checker. Now these terms will be not too familiar to you, but in banks what happens is when a transaction is processed by one person, that person is called the maker, and the transaction will be checked by another person, and that person is called the checker. So without a checker signing off, the transaction cannot go through. Now, in the whole urgency of things, what I did was I was the maker, so I made I made the decision to move this into production. I forgot to get it checked by a checker, and the decision that I made that day, I lived to regret it for a long time, because that became a black mark on my HR records. Actually, it was not that major, but it became a black mark, and even today I regret that for making a decision like that. So sometimes when we are in an urgency, in an emergency, we don't stop to think of what we are doing, and we do make decisions in a haste, and sometimes that comes back to bite us. So that was an incident that quickly came back to me, my Deepa. So thanks for asking me that question.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. We have Aditya, Aditya Shankar. Hi, Aditya. Thank you for joining us. I was late for the session, so I might have missed out, but he has a question. How do you deal with the fear of moving out of comfort zone?
Ah, great question, isn't it? This is a question I think is in everybody's mind. But let me answer this with a passion that Deepa and I share together, that is running. Now, In 2008, I returned to India, and in 2009, we had a high school reunion that was supposed to have happened in 2008, which was 30 years of our class 10 completion, or SSLC completion, but we did it in 2009. And so 2009, I went to the um reunion, and I can tell you shamelessly, I was one of the fat and ugly guys there. I had moved to India, and I was eating Indian food. I was attending every wedding that I could in the 1 or 1.5 years I had been here, because I was out of the country for more than a decade. And I had put on weight like crazy.
Sorry to interrupt you, Patrick. I think you'll have to repeat that. Your video got lagged again.
Oh,
So
okay.
just
Sorry.
if you could just go 10 seconds back for our audience, please.
Sorry. So what I was saying was, I had put on a lot of weight. I was overweight, and I was comfortable sitting on the couch watching TV, eating, whatever I can, and eating anything outside. I had no control over my food, and quickly I was close to 94 kilos at that time. Today I'm less than 80. So, it was, a very embarrassing time for me. But I decided I will take up running. So this was the year 2010. Now, getting out of your couch and hitting the road and running was something not very easy. I still remember my first run in Kaban Park. This was sometime in March or April 2010, if I'm not wrong. And I stepped out, and I couldn't even run about 200-250 meters, leave a kilometer out. I couldn't even run a quarter of a kilometer. But the first time when you step out of your comfort zone, it is going to be tough. So that is why we call it a comfort zone, and the fear is there. But then, as they say, right, no pain, no gain. I said, okay, today I did 250 meters. Tomorrow I'll come back and do something more. The next day I came back, I did 400 meters. And before I knew, I did a kilometer. I was running a kilometer. And before I knew, I was running 3 kilometers. And before I knew, I was running 5 kilometers. And exactly 10 years ago, what used to be the Sunbeam 10 fees, Sunbeam 10K, that later became the TCS 10K. I finished my first 10-kilometer race, and exactly 10 years ago. That was May 2010. Okay, I finished my first 10K race. I took 76 minutes to finish. Doesn't matter. Nevertheless, I finished it. And when I finished my first race, I realized I had come out of my comfort zone. Comfort zone, sitting on the couch, watching TV, no exercise was always very comfortable. But when you step out and you do that first race, is when you know that you have come out of your comfort zone. Same thing applies in your career as well. I told you the story when I first took up my first chief information security officer position with the Society Generale. It wasn't easy. I was suddenly in the big meetings, and sitting with the CEO, and questions coming my way. I stumbled my way through, but I held on. I said, I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. So, you have to have that I will not give up, never give up attitude in order to overcome that fear of getting out of your comfort zone. Only then you will succeed.
Wow, absolutely. Never give up attitude, right? Yes. So we have Dipti asking us a question. Your story is indeed an inspiration. My question is, you have jumped across many roles and companies. Has it ever been a disadvantage for you? Has any company, or I'm assuming, or people judged you?
Um, what I missed, telling you, I did tell you about, my career, but in the course of my career, I've been laid off twice. Okay. I will leave out the details, but I have been laid off. And, it was tough. The first time I got laid off, I almost had an offer in hand. And that is when I moved into Visa. So this was in 2001, I told you, right? So I got laid off, and it was tough. We kept it a secret at that time. My wife, only my wife knew. And somehow I told her there is another job on the horizon, and let's move on. But after I moved to Bangalore, leaving out the details, I got laid off one more time. And interestingly, it was a tough time. It was about 3 months of no job. And of course, everybody judges you. Your parents are the first one who judge you. Your parents call every day and they ask you, do you have a job now? And it's the toughest question to answer. But in today's situation, it is everybody is going through a layoff. But everybody is having the fear of layoff. Everybody is having the fear of their job, right? A lot of us may have a secure job, but the fear is always there in the back of your mind. And I'm not going to blame you for that. The pandemic has put us all on our back foot, several yards behind, right? And I know there is a question here from Saumya as well. A similar situation, a fresher like me, how do I get into the job market? See, my my simple advice is same thing: never give up, never give up. I'll tell you one thing: after the storm comes the calm. Now, last night we all heard the storm in Calcutta and in West Bengal. But today, Calcutta and West Bengal are calm. Of course, the devastation of the storm doesn't go away in a day or two. There is going to be a long road to recovery. But the storm doesn't blow forever. The storm at one point will stop. This pandemic will also come to an end. And when that happens, most companies which have put gone into a hiring freeze, which have put a hold on the hiring, will start hiring, will definitely start hiring. I myself, I'll tell you, I have close to 10 positions that I have to fill. I myself have to fill under me. Okay. Now, if I look at all the rest of my IT heads, they all have positions to fill. So hiring will open. And when hiring opens, all of you will be in the job market. So all I can tell you is keep your skills sharp, keep working on new skills that you acquire. Always never shy away from learning something new, which will come handy any day, anytime. Okay. Never give up. Never give up hope. The moment you give up hope, everything is lost. So look at the bright future. I'm sure the job markets will open in a few months, and then nobody is going to stop you. All of you will get a job. Don't worry about it.
Wow, that was so positive, Patrick. Absolutely. Use this time for your benefit. Use this downtime to upskill. Use this time to spend inwardly into you. What you are, what you want to be, what are your strengths, work on your weaknesses. And as Patrick rightly put, this storm is definitely going to go. And when it's going to go, we will bounce back by like nobody else. We're going to take the last question for the day. We're running out of time. We have from Dr. Shrikant Upadhyay. Okay, he says, "How can we secure our data or information more, although we are using a PIN, password, and every time have a fear of getting tracked?" Getting the fear of tracking a pin or it's being tampered. Any suggestions is what Dr. Upadhyay asks us.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So I will take just a minute to answer that. See, as we have assets, right? Now, in our home, we have various metals. A simple way of telling it, right? There are metals that we use in our kitchen, and there are metals that we wear as jewelry as well. Both are metals, right? Now, we know that the metals that we wear, the gold, the silver, the platinum, and the diamonds that go with it, are of much more um, value than the metals that we use in the kitchen, the plates that we use to eat, or the steel, the stainless steel tumblers that we use to drink water from. Now, these I know are also metals, but there is a difference, right? Now, when the gold and the platinum, we know that we have to make sure that we put them in a bank locker or at a locker at home and you secure it. The kitchen metals, we just put it on the kitchen sink after you wash it, and nobody cares about it, right? And even if a thief comes into your home, he's not going to go steal the plates and the tumblers, right? He's going to try to steal the jewelry, right? So my advice to you is segregate the data. The data that you think is more valuable to you, more critical to you, like your property documents, your financial documents, your tax documents, take that and put that in the most secure places and put a strong password, put a strong multi-factor authentication so that your most critical data is secured properly. Now there are other data that you may also have, right? Your other spreadsheets, your children's homework, I don't know, I mean your son's college assignments. Now these are things that could be also on your laptop or the children's laptop, but these are data that not many would want to steal, because there is nothing that they can no monetary value that they can get out of stealing such a data. Now you need to secure that data also, but you don't have to put as much of the security that you put on the data that is more valuable to you. So what I my advice is, classify the data, take the data that is more valuable to you, and make sure there are plenty of tools available. You just have to look around, find the right tool, put the data there and secure it so that you can be of peace of mind. Okay, so please follow that, and that will give you a lot of peace of mind.
Wonderful. Thank you. That is segregating of data and understanding what is steel and what is gold. Absolutely. Uh, Thank you so much for that. Yes. Do we have any other questions? I am assuming no, because my chat is empty as of now. But I do have people saying, okay, do we have one more question? Do you have any cloud data storage? Patrick, you're muted.
All right, I'll answer that, just 30 seconds. Yes, see, cloud has become part and parcel of the IT environment all over the world right now. And the cloud providers, the major cloud providers like AWS, which is Amazon cloud, and Azure, which is the Microsoft cloud. Oracle has their own cloud as well. The major cloud providers have a stringent regulation and stringent standards that they should follow, right? I'm not saying that, yeah, if you rent out something from Azure, it is going to be secure out of the box, but it comes with a fairly good amount of security. Now within that, there are various services that are offered. Now, as I said, right, I was just talking about data, and the you take the right service for the right data. Now your most confidential data, your secret data, your intellectual property rights, these should be stored in the most secure of the places, even in the cloud, and where a hacker would be not able to get to very easily, right? So cloud storage, as I said, is today one of the best places to keep your data. And as I said, the service providers have a lot to lose, especially of reputation. The last thing Amazon wants is one of their AWS cloud was hacked, and the moment that news comes out, nobody is going to use it. Now Zoom itself, right now we are using Zoom. Last week, we know that Zoom has a lot of security issues, and a lot of companies have gone have not are not using Zoom, right? And even in my company, I initiated the ban of Zoom, right? Now I know here we are using Zoom because this is a webinar and it's easy to use, the ease of use. And this is the speech that I'm giving is open to all. There is nothing confidential I'm talking about, right? But when it comes to a company board meeting, I will not use Zoom because it is there is a huge security issue there. So we need to make sure that we are using the right secure platforms for the right purpose. And so that way, the major cloud providers are fairly safe, as I said. And you look at the service that you are buying and make sure your service is secure so that you don't lose any data.